Hello there. Welcome. Welcome to the Tower of London. How are you doing? I couldn't possibly ask you a favour, could I? You see, well, I guess, yes, you could say that. We tend not to use that term. And we prefer to say post-living, but yes, you could call me a ghost if you wish. No need to be alarmed. No need to be alarmed. I'm perfectly house-trained. But yes, I was wondering if you could do me a little favour. You see, I'm confined right now to this, binded, if you will, to this place. And I'm not able to leave unless I'm able to bind myself to somebody who's living. And that person leaves, and then I become free of this place in my binding. Would it be awfully too much trouble to ask you if you could do something like that for me? I mean, I'm more than happy to give you a good, really in-depth tour of the tower, if that sweetens the deal. I have a knowledge of a lot of things, of course, have been passed down, that no other tour guide would be aware of. What do you think? Do you think you could possibly do that? Well, okay. Well, maybe you can think about it, and I can give you the tour anyway, and we can take you through some of the more delightfully macabre sights that we have here at the tower. What do you think? Okay, good. I really do hope you change your mind, because this is quite the sitch I find myself in. And I really would like to discover more of London, if possible. I used to travel London quite a lot as a merchant, and even further abroad than that, as far as even Canterbury. So it would be nice to see how things have changed. Presumably not too much, so that should be fine, Maybe take a horse down to, St. Ives or something like that. That would be wonderful. So, yes, hopefully you will be comfortable with that by the end. That would be ideal. Oh, yes, of course, sorry. How rude of me. Sir Vincent Brambleworth. And you are? That's a very interesting name. Okay. Yes, good. No, nothing wrong with it. That's an excellent name. Shall we? Okay, let's move on from that. Shall we begin? Good. Perfect. Right, what shall we do first? Aha! Yes, come with me. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that loud upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean, buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed its wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed seats, to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers limply in a lady's chamber, to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I that am not made for such sportive tricks, nor to court the amorous looking-glass, I whom curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this cruel world, and since this time offers me no pleasure, but to command, to awed bear those of a lower station than myself, I'll make my heaven to dream upon a crown, and hold each day a living hell, until my deformed trunk be round and pillowed with the glorious crown. and yet I know not how to get the crown. For many lives stand between me and home. I shall cry content to that which grieves my heart, and wet my cheeks with artificial tears, and I'll smile, and murder while I smile. Richard III. So we find ourselves here at the tower, the bloody tower at the start of itself at the stairs. And why do I bring you here first? Well, this place, although chocked full of delightfully exciting ghosts and different types of people, I think it would be remiss of me not to start with the two most famous of all, the two children of the bloody tower, Edward V and his son Richard. Most certainly a remarkable story. I think it was in 1483, quite some time back now, isn't it, when you think about it. King Richard III decided he would usurp the crown and become the new King of England. This had one problem. Although he had seized the crown from his brother had two sons, his nephews, as I said before, Richard and Edward. And these represented a risk to his throne. So he did what any unscrupulous madman would do, and locked them in the bloody tower, away from people's sight. Within a year, they were no longer seen in public. And within 5 years, they had disappeared entirely. Now some say that they died of an illness that they both contracted, peacefully, but in terrible tragedy that it was. But there are some other folks who guess at the truth and say that the boys were murdered by their uncle. And they were. 2 boys stabbed to death in the bloody tower, and then their bodies were buried under these very stairs. 2 lovely boys, by the way. A little bit rambunctious for my liking, but still very playful. Sometimes if you listen carefully, you can hear them still playing. Yes, delightful, isn't it? If you're lucky, sometimes at night you can see them running around in their white nightshirts, playing along the battlements with wooden swords. The bloody tower. It has more tales to tell than just this. But I think we shall move from this place, and I shall show you other delights. Are you okay? Good. Sorry about that. It is a little bit disorientating. I should have given you a forewarned knowledge of it. But it is much, much quicker. So I just thought this might be the best way to go about it, so to speak. Next, well, maybe we shall go through the story of Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was Henry VIII's second wife, I believe. He had 6 wives. I've met a few of them. They're rather nice people. 1 or 2 a little naive, if I'm honest, but still quite reasonable company. And poor Anne, she spends most of her time in the main courtyard, if you take off to the right and then a little further on, there's an area called the Queen's House. And that's where she spends most of her time. A little bit awkward when you meet her. Try not to stare if we do see her, because, well, she doesn't have a head, which is a little bit awkward. She has her head tucked underneath her arm, carries it everywhere, which makes it a little bit difficult for her, and very awkward to maintain eye contact, if I'm honest, under those scenarios. But let me tell you a little of the story of Anne, then, shall we? Anne married Henry VIII, but unfortunately for her, she was not able to provide him with a male heir. So, that didn't end well. Henry was rather obsessed with having a male child to carry on his line. I guess, what can you say? There is nothing else that can be done in those situations. So, Henry, rather evilly, made up charges about Anne's infidelity, which, I know for a fact, by the way, isn't true. Not only have I spoken to her, but I've spoken to those accused of these crimes as well. And they both maintain their innocence, and I've actually seen some of the flashbacks as well, so. Well, in 1536, he got his way, and she was executed on the Tower Green. Axeman. Chop. What can we say, except how tragic? Anyway, on from these melancholy matters to something else, I think. How was that? A little bit better that time. Good. It does take some getting used to, as I say. But, the chapel. I adore the chapel. If I'm honest, I spend a large chunk of my time here. It's so relaxing. It flutters between the two realms of quiet contemplation and beautifully measured music. Can you hear them? Can you hear them sing? Yes, wonderful. And of course, as the sun sets or rises, the colour of the glass in the rooms changes to delightfully different shades. Oh, it's a most meditative and fantastic place to be. But we are not here for just the meditative now, are we? We are here for the delightfully murderous history of the Tower of London. And so why do I bring you to this place? Well, one of my good friends, Henry VI, jolly good fellow. I also know his father, Henry V, who was a wonderful chap as well. He often says, heavy is the head that wears a crown. Of course, he meant it literally. The crowns are extremely heavy on the head, but it was interpreted later as a metaphor for the pressure of office. He's quite proud of that one. But we're not here to talk about him, we're here to talk about Henry VI. Poor Henry. Things didn't go so well for him during the wars, and he was captured and placed here in the tower. He would spend a lot of his time here in the chapel also, although he had a large suite of rooms. It would be difficult to call it a jail cell, quite frankly. Very few people during his time would have a place to live that was that nice. Full stop. But kings and queens were treated slightly differently here. So, the story goes that during the wars, he heard from one of his friends that his son had died in battle. And over time, he slowly wasted away in a melancholic stupor, and sadness overtook him. Not true, of course. Henry himself told me that he was brutally stabbed to death by his opponents, such that he could not inherit the throne or be a risk of rebellion. Well, I have no cause to doubt him. In fact, if you meet the fellow, covered in holes, very messy drinker. So, yes, he's most certainly telling the truth about that one. Good old Henry. Sometimes we play poker, all the Henrys together. They have a Henry night. It's quite good. Obviously, I'm not allowed to play, but I watch. So, Henry, what else was I talking about? Catherine. My dear friend Catherine, how can I forget her? Oh, Catherine Howard. Oh, have you heard of her? Hers is a very tragic story as well. Let's be honest. If you're a ghost in the Tower of London, your story's going to be fairly tragic, isn't it? It's not going to be, oh, and then they died, happy, surrounded by friends, with an accomplished life, in no pain whatsoever. Not many people's story ends that way here, I'm afraid. Oh, maybe one day I'll tell you, but for now we're talking about Catherine, Miss Howard. Yes, I'm afraid good old scamp, our lovable rogue and homicidal maniac Henry VIII comes back into play here. What's he up to? No good, I'm sure, executing his enemies in a brutal and foul manner. And Catherine was, unfortunately, one of those who irked him, who triggered his ire. Now they say that she was having an affair with two gentlemen, one who she was somewhat related to, which was a bit awkward, and Henry wasn't really that keen on the fact, so he decided to have her imprisoned in the Tower, dragged off from Hampton Court Palace, and then ultimately executed. Whether they're true or not, I don't know. I mean, she says not, and the two gentlemen in question who were also brutally executed here also say not, although the way they act around each other, it does give me some cause to doubt. If I'm honest, I'm just going to throw it out there, but I don't want to start rumors or anything like that. They say when she found out of the king's displeasure, she screamed and ran up and down the halls of Hampton Court Palace until she was grabbed and pulled to the tower. Sometimes in her room, you can hear her gently sobbing. No screams anymore. When I was here, before I was here, they said that she would scream, but now no more, just gentle sobbing. That one got me as well a little bit that time. It's shouldn't do it too often, but this is a little bit different. We are trying to get you through this as best we can. Margaret Pole, or Maggie, if you will. Someone I don't really hang around with too much, if I'm honest. She has a little bit of an attitude problem. Anyway, she was flagged as a traitor by the crown. It was actually her son who was flagged as the traitor, but he fled to France. Interesting thing to do, if I'm honest, but so yes, he fled to France and his mother was left behind, and so the king took it out on her instead. So she was imprisoned here for a year or so, until she faced the block. When she was taken to the block, she was told to put her head on the block, kneel. But she said no to that request. She is a very spirited woman. She said, "This is what traitors do, of which I am not." And they didn't really have much option but to do it there while she stood. There was a crowd of about 150 people, and when the axeman lifted his axe, she ran away. She just started running around the actual gallows themselves, the actual stand, and the axeman didn't really know what to do, so he just kept hacking at her piece by piece while she ran around until, a chunk here, a limb there, until eventually she fell dead. So a very gruesome and botched execution that. No, occasionally she does leave little bits and pieces around the tower itself, but no, in general she's, on the whole, a whole person. Yes, sometimes these things manifest themselves always, but not always. So yes, Margaret. I think another thing I would probably talk about would be Lady Jane Grey. If you don't know her, she was queen, but she was queen for but 6 days, which is not an awfully long time when you think about it. So Lady Jane Grey, her brother and her uncle thought she had a very good claim to the throne, and they had her invested as queen. But as these things so often do, it ended in tragedy. She was eventually usurped and named the usurper herself. And she was brought to the tower, and guess what happened next? Yep. A sword this time. A nice clean sword to take the head off the shoulders. A quicker way to die. If you liked someone back then, you would hire a French swordsman. The tragic thing about that is she most likely saw her friends and relatives' heads on spikes as she was taken to the gallows. But she saw it with bravely, and just gently prayed, and then was taken off to the realm of the dead. Rather pious, nice young woman. Sometimes I see her at the chapel praying. Mainly that's what she does, pray. I would say 95% of her time is dedicated to prayer. The other 5% she might be crying. Maybe a little bit of the time she spends running up to people who are still alive and running through them. But she doesn't do that as much as she used to. Very boring person to have at a party, if I'm honest. Not very popular. I guess we couldn't really complete our tour without talking about Lady Arabella. Lady Arabella Stuart. She married one of Lady Grey's nephews, I think. I mean, pretty much everybody here is related, except for a few of the commoners, like myself. But she married in secret, and she was quite closely related to Elizabeth I, which King James did not love in the first place. But then, to make matters worse, she married in secret to another man who also had a claim potentially to the throne. So he decided to have them arrested. And they were both put into the tower. And most remarkably, she and her husband managed to escape. But her boat was delayed. They escaped in separate attempts, where her husband was not. He was sent across to Flanders. She missed the boat, so to speak, and was returned to the tower, where she decided she could not live without her husband, and refused to eat, and slowly withered away. True. That is a true story, that one. She confirms that, or she's one of the ghosts here who's very keen to leave as well, so she can maybe visit her husband in Flanders. That would be rather nice for her. Mind you, for someone who has starved themselves to death, she really does have an unending appetite. You should see her at the buffets that we have here sometimes. Always first in the queue. Heaping plates. I mean, goodness gracious, the greed. But you shouldn't speak ill of the dead, should you? So I shall leave that as it is. I think one curious thing that you might be interested in hearing about would be the animals. No? Oh, well, yes. There are a few animals here, ghost-wise. The tower itself was filled with animals at one point. The incredibly cruel and barbaric entertainment of games that they had in the times would pit animals against each other in battle. But eventually, they became more of a zoo, and we had several different animals here over the years. What did we have? Let me think. Sorry, it's been a while. In about the 1800s, 1820s, something like that. The Duke of Wellington, he had them all shipped off to the London Zoo. Have you been to the London Zoo, by the way? Oh, me neither. I would love to go. Probably not the first place I'll go, but where would you recommend? What's the best place you visited in London? I've never heard of that. It sounds awfully nice, though. Where was I? Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, so animal-wise, we had a bear. Yes, that isn't here anymore. I don't know where that went. I think we had, obviously, the place is covered in ravens. They say that when the ravens disappear, it could mean the end of the world. But yes, we have some ravens. Again, none of them ghosts. A few horses. Those are ghost horses. And we also have an elephant. Actually, yes, the elephant. Still wanders around here sometimes. I remember one time one of the guards, because animals, when they become a ghost, they become more visceral, vestigial, more primitive, I guess. And so this hulking beast sometimes is just overwhelmed by a desire to run, and it'll run through the courtyard, and I've seen it knock guards clean off their feet, which they attribute to stumbling or the wind or something like that. But yes, the menagerie, that was very strange. I don't miss it, if I'm honest. Very noisy indeed. Well, that concludes our tour, I think. I could take you through maybe one or two of the other exhibits. There is a suit of armour, of course, that was owned by Henry VIII. Henry VIII isn't here, but there is some... I don't think I want to take you there to that room, because it's... Even the ghosts stay away from there. There's some malevolent evil there. You can really feel it if you go there on your own. It's icily cold, and you feel a sense of pressure. The heartbeat rises. None of us really know what is in there. So I think I've covered pretty much all the best bits now. I have a question for you. Are you willing to take me with you? Oh, it would be no trouble. Honestly, you won't even feel it. Honestly, there's nothing to feel. It will just be me attaching myself to your corporeal form. You might feel a slight tingling, is all. And then you shall leave the tower. And then once you get outside of the tower, I shall detach myself from your corporal form. And then we shall say our goodbyes, and off I go. Probably never to return to the tower, if I'm honest. I've got some friends here, but several hundred years really does take the edge off a place. So, what do you say? There are no backfiring, there's no sort of crazy, ghostly, being taken over type stuff. I won't be able to control you. I literally just need to append myself onto you for a few moments as you leave. Okay. That's very nice of you. Thank you very much. You don't need to do anything. I shall band myself to you. And if anything goes wrong at the gate, we don't know each other. Okay? Okay, nothing will go wrong. Don't worry. I don't know why I even said that. Don't worry. Nothing will go wrong. Okay. I've only done this once before. I'm sorry. I have to remember how it's done. I think... Yes. Okay. Yes. Well, best of luck, and I will see you on the other side.